Welcome back to Football Daily. We've already given you our Premier League team of the season, so now it's time for our 11 of the worst players in 2019-20. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts on this in the comments and if you have any other suggestions for this side. Anyway, let's get this one started. Goalkeeper, Kepa. While the Premier League has seen a fair share of exciting goalkeeping performances this term, there have been some stinkers too. And although there are shouts for Roberto and Jordan Pickford taking this spot, the West Ham stopper only made 8 appearances, while Everton's number 1 has a relatively poor defence in front of him. The Chelsea backline may have also had its fair share of critics this term, but Kepa has undoubtedly been the main culprit. According to expected goals, the Blues should have the 5th best defensive record in the league this term, but in reality they rank 11th, conceding more than Crystal Palace and Arsenal. And when you look at Kepa's stats, it's no surprise. He has let in a higher proportion of the shots he's faced than any other starting keeper in the Prem, posting a woeful save percentage of 57%. He's also kept fewer clean sheets than Martin Dubravka at Newcastle and Ben Foster at relegated Watford, with the Blues conceding the most goals for a side to finish in the top 4 since Norwich in the inaugural Premier League season back in 1993. Subsequently, Chelsea have been linked with Burnley's Nick Pope and even Atletico Madrid's Jan Oblak, as they attempt to build a side capable of challenging Liverpool and Man City at the top. While Kepa still has time to improve at 25, he has been the side's Achilles heel for the last 2 campaigns, and may already have had his last chance. Defender, Adrian Mariappa. After the high of reaching an FA Cup final in 2019, it's been a disastrous season for Watford, with their 3-0 dismantling of champions Liverpool very much an anomaly in a campaign which saw them drop out of the top flight after 5 years. And one man who looked particularly poor was Adrian Mariappa. Born in Harrow, the defender came up through the Hornets' youth ranks and has made nearly 350 appearances for the club across 2 spells. But his performances took a noticeable decline in 2019-20. Playing predominantly at right back in the absence of Daryl Janmaat, the 33-year-old saw his tackles and interceptions drop from 2.8 per 90 last season to just 1.9 this term. Even more worrying considering that figure stood at 3.6 in 2017-18. And it's not like he's picking his battles better either, with his tackle success dropping from 67% to 60%. And these poor defensive numbers haven't even been reconciled with any attacking output. In fact, he produced marginally less chances from right back this term than he did from centre back in 18-19, while his 72% pass accuracy is simply not good enough for a defender. At 33, Mariappa could never be expected to make a seamless switch to fullback, but it's equally no surprise his game time dropped by nearly half this term. Defender, Nicolas Otamendi. 2 years ago, Manchester City set the Premier League points record, and while their blistering attack took much of the credit, their success was equally built on a near impenetrable defence, and Nicolas Otamendi was a huge part of that, playing more minutes than any outfield player in the squad bar Kevin De Bruyne. But fast forward to 2020 and things couldn't be more different for the Argentinian. City's defence struggled massively during Aymeric Laporte's long stint on the sidelines, and Otamendi has failed to fill the gap effectively. During the campaign, Guardiola's side recorded a 67% win ratio with Otamendi in the side, while they won 75% of the games he didn't appear in. Compare that to the glorious 17-18 season when he won 85% of the matches he played, and you can see how far his stock has fallen at the Etihad. And while City's defensive structure has become weaker in general, so has Otamendi's all-round game. He now wins just 63% of his tackles compared with 89% last season, and he has also become a less active player in ball progression, completing 2.5 long balls a match, down from 4.3 in 2017-18. Now 32, and with City eyeing a top-class centre-back this summer, Otamendi's days in the Premier League could be numbered. Defender, Eric Dier. One of Jose Mourinho's top transfer targets during his days as Man United manager, Eric Dier hasn't fared well since the Portuguese coach's arrival at Tottenham in November 2019. The Englishman was once a key player for the North London club. with only Christian Eriksen playing more minutes than him during the excellent 2016-17 campaign, in which they finished second on 86 points. But fast forward to 1920 and he ranks 16th in the squad for appearances, again below Eriksen, who left for Inter Milan in January. But despite appearing in fewer games than at any stage in his Spurs career, he's been involved in the vast majority of the side's worst defeats, starting their 3-0 loss to Brighton and getting subbed at half-time during a 2-0 home loss to Chelsea. And while his limitations as a midfielder have led some to believe his better position to be in defence, his performances at centre-back have told a different story, with Tottenham's defensive record going from the 3rd best in the Prem to the 8th best in just one season. Spurs have won just 29% of the league games in which Dier has featured in the back line, including post-lockdown losses to Wolves and Sheffield United, in which the side conceded 3 each time. And to make the case for his inclusion even weaker, he was also playing centre-back when they were knocked out by Colchester in the League Cup and Norwich in the FA Cup, getting himself a 4-game ban for entering the crowd following the latter defeat. Midfielder Alex Iwobi. When Everton signed Alex Iwobi from Arsenal for £28 million plus potential add-ons, it seemed like a good deal. The Nigeria international ranked joint second in the Gunners' squad for assists the previous term, with only Mesut Ozil producing more chances than him per 90. However, the Toffees have a patchy record when it comes to signing creators, and unfortunately for them, Iwobi has continued that trend. This season, his key passes dropped from 1.8 a match to 1.3, while his expected goals and assists per 90 halved. In fact, after scoring against Wolves in September, he failed to register a single goal involvement for the rest of the season, with 1 goal and 0 assists from 25 appearances. For context, Theo Walcott put up 4 times that in 500 fewer minutes, while Moise Kean, who's also been considered a flop, has produced 3 times as much in half the game time. A player capable of producing moments of genuine brilliance during his days at Arsenal, it would have been interesting to see how he fit in the system currently being implemented at the Emirates by Mikel Arteta. Instead, he's become yet another underwhelming player in an underwhelming season for Everton, who have finished in the bottom half of the table for just the 3rd time in 14 years. Midfielder Alexander Tettey. It's difficult to find one defining weak link in a Norwich side which has undoubtedly been the poorest in the Premier League this season. But while the side's attack was nowhere near productive enough to ensure survival, it was their soft centre which let them down the most. It's perhaps understandable given the 3 defenders with the most minutes at Carrow Road are all under 23, but they also had inadequate protection in front of them. Veteran midfielder Alex Tettey has played for the Canaries since 2012, meaning this was his 5th Premier League campaign with them, but at 34 it's clear he's no longer cut out for the English top flight. Despite playing predominantly at DM, the former Norway international offered very little in the centre of the park from a defensive standpoint, winning the ball back just 2.4 times a game and sustaining a poor 47% tackle success rate. And unlike his midfield partner Kenny McLean, his presence in build-up was hardly felt either, making just 1.8 progressive passes a match, compared with McLean's 5. Following Norwich's relegation, Tettey, who has made over 200 appearances for the club, apologised to the fans, saying, "We tried and we were not good enough." Sadly for Tettey, this statement applies most accurately to himself. Midfielder Douglas Luiz. Unlike Alex Tettey, Douglas Luiz still has a lot of time to improve at 22 years of age, but his first season in the Premier League was disappointing to say the least. Signed by Man City from Vasco da Gama as a teenager, the Brazilian midfielder spent 2 years on loan at Girona before moving to newly promoted Aston Villa in 2019. But despite racking up the 3rd most minutes in the Villa squad, Luiz has offered very little. While 3 goals and 2 assists from central midfield in a side battling relegation doesn't sound too bad, his 0.13 expected goal involvements per 90 paled in comparison to teammates John McGinn and Conor Hourihane. While he could only create a chance every 2 games, a worse record than defensive mid Marvelous Nakamba. He also fared poorly in other areas of his game, winning just 47% of his tackles, while he ranked just 5th in the squad for progressive passes. Not great for a player once highly rated by Pep Guardiola. With Jack Grealish having to do almost all of the legwork for Villa in 2019-20, Douglas Luiz was one of a few players to see the season pass him by. Midfielder Ryan Fraser. A rumoured target for Arsenal last summer, Ryan Fraser came into the new season off the back of his best campaign as a professional, contributing to 21 goals during the 2018-19 campaign and providing more assists than master creator Christian Eriksen. But with no big move materialising for the Scottish winger, his performances dropped off massively in 1920. His key passes fell from 2.4 to 1.6 a game, his shots from 1.3 to 1, while his expected assists per 90 went from 0.46 last season to a measly 0.16 this term. It's no wonder then that Bournemouth struggled so much during the season, with Callum Wilson also seeing his goal output fall off a cliff in the absence of any consistent service. And to make matters worse, Fraser's ambitions to leave the Cherries saw him refuse to sign a new contract, meaning he became a free agent before the season was out, bringing an acrimonious end to what was otherwise a very successful 7-year stay at the club. Forward Sebastian Haller. Costing £45 million from Eintracht Frankfurt, Sebastian Haller became West Ham's record signing in the summer of 2019, and initially seemed like a smart acquisition. The French striker had been excellent at Dutch side Utrecht and was also a big hit in the Bundesliga, registering more goal involvements than RB Leipzig's Timo Werner during the 2018-19 campaign. But after a promising start, Haller has had a season to forget at the London Stadium, having struggled in the role of lone centre-forward. He has scored just 3 times since October and has just 8 goal involvements to his name from over 2,200 minutes, just one more than Mark Noble. For further context, Man United's Mason Greenwood has scored 2 more than him in half the minutes, and his creativity has also fallen off massively, producing just 1 key pass per 90 compared with 1.6 last term. And to add insult to injury, quite literally, when Haller was ruled out for the beginning of the Premier League restart, Mikel Antonio took his place, and in 5 games scored as many goals as Haller has managed all season, firing the Hammers to safety. When a 30-year-old utility man is putting your performances to shame, you know you've had a bad season, and it will take a real step up next term for Haller to repay the expectations that came with his record fee. Forward Glenn Murray. Considering he turns 37 in September, it's hard to knock Glenn Murray too much. But bearing in mind just how good his scoring form in the Premier League had been in the previous 2 campaigns, it's clear the Brighton striker hasn't earned the trust of manager Graham Potter. Having racked up over 2,500 league minutes in 2018-19, Murray hasn't even hit the 1,000 mark this term, ranking 17th in the squad for game time and making just 7 starts in total, with Potter preferring to play both Neal Maupay and youngster Aaron Connolly over him up top. But even in limited minutes he has underproduced, with just 1 goal and 1 assist, while he is winning far fewer aerial duels than before and taking fewer shots in the box per 90 than Connolly or Maupay. Whereas Murray's performances and output had previously belied his years and earned a lot of respect from us at FD, he now looks very much his age, and as a more old-fashioned target man, he simply doesn't fit in Potter's more expansive system. Sadly, Murray's days in the Premier League are winding down fast. Forward Dominic Solanke. It's been another disappointing year for Dominic Solanke. The English forward, who is still only 22, at least got some minutes this season for Bournemouth, but the once highly rated youngster has shown little sign of development. Still limited mainly to sub-appearances by Eddie Howe despite both Callum Wilson and Josh King dropping off in form, Solanke finally scored his first goal for the Cherries in July, 18 months on from his £19 million move from Liverpool. Until then, he had just a single assist to his name, and at the time of writing has contributed to a goal once every 527 minutes, which even in a relegation battling side is nowhere near good enough. And his underlying numbers don't read much better. He's managing less than a shot in the box per 90, and the same can be said for his chance creation, which is at the lowest point of his career. He also looks devoid of confidence, completing just 44% of his dribbles, his worst performance in this metric since his days as a teenager on loan at Vitesse. Solanke is perhaps one of the worst pound-for-pound signings in recent Premier League history. So that was our worst team of the season. What did you make of it? Were we a little too harsh on some players, and are there any others you reckon we should have included? Let us know down below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button and click on screen right now, as I'm sure it's another great FD video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll see you next time.